Today I'm going to show you how the shadow war is secretly unfolding behind the scenes in Venezuela. The US government just confirmed that they authorized CIA officers to take covert action against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and the drug.
Yeah, this whole situation is kind of crazy because they be saying like no war and all this other stuff and pieces, and then now we're just flexing on Venezuela. Oh,
Cartels. That terrible Tom Clancy fanfiction I wrote in high school is now becoming a reality. We've consolidated everything you need to know, from the ground operations Venezuela claims are already underway, to the massive ongoing US military buildup in the Caribbean, and Maduro's attempts to request help from his allies in Russia and China. The first thing you need to know is signing off on any kind of covert action allows American paramilitary officers to carry out lethal missions across the country. Ground branch activities are real spooky stuff designed to...
I'll tell you right now, anyone that has face paint on is hating their life. Especially if they have a helmet strap.
Attack political, military, and economic conditions. And just a few days after this announcement of that authorization, Venezuelan authorities came out and they claimed in a press conference that they'd captured a group of 4 operatives already. President Maduro's government stated that they'd apprehended a CIA-backed mercenary group that was plotting to conduct a false flag attack against one of their own US warships docked in the Caribbean. According to them, this attack would have been used as justification by the United States military to go absolutely ham and launch a massive strike against ground targets and topple Maduro. According to Venezuelan authorities, the CIA...
I don't know if the CIA wants you found, or wants to get caught, they're going to get caught. But I don't know about all that.
CIA-backed group tried to plant evidence along the way to implicate Venezuela in the attack. What that evidence would have been, they didn't say. My guess, they were going to leave behind a wallet with Maduro's driver's license and sprinkle some cocaine on it. But the United States has a...
That's all you need. That's all you need to take down a full-on governmental regime.
Officially denied any involvement, making it another case of he said, she said of geopolitics. Venezuelan Vice President Rodriguez claimed that the alleged plot was similar to past incidents in history, like the 1898 explosion of the USS Maine off the coast of Cuba, and the 1964 Gulf of Tonkin incident near Vietnam that was used as a precursor to justify further involvement in the Vietnam War. But so far, authorities have yet to provide any smoking gun, any direct evidence.
Now that, I don't deny. But, I mean, I guess the why would be oil. That's the only thing I think of. Truly, I mean, I'm sure the whole Trump thing comes up and all that, but... Uncle Sam doesn't just go out and help people without an alternative personal motive.
Evidence of actual US involvement. Born too late for regime change in Latin America, born too early for regime change in Latin America, but born just in time for regime change in Latin America. But what happened next in this shadow war has been fully confirmed by the United States authorities themselves, and it played out in the full view of the public. It was a shocking mission to capture the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro himself, a major escalation, and it didn't go entirely according to plan, as we'll see. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by Delete Me. I use them because when I cover topics like Venezuela, it can be emotionally charged, controversial, so a lot of times afterwards I'll get emails from people harassing me, threatening me, trying to dox me. That's why I trust Delete Me to remove my online data, which helps protect me from these risks. Data brokers sell your personal information online, and anyone can buy your personal details. It's not just me dealing with it. A Duke study found that data brokers are exposing sensitive US military personnel information to foreign adversaries. Before I started using Delete Me, I was getting scam phone calls 6-7 times a day. Now that's not an issue anymore. Delete Me's privacy report reviewed 382 listings on me and removed my info from multiple sites. Over just this year, they've scrubbed my info from over 8 different data brokers and saved me dozens of hours of having to sift through shady opt-out pages. If you want your data deleted forever, just go to joindeleteme.com/CappyArmy or use promo code CAPPY for 20% off. That's joindeleteme.com/CappyArmy and use code CAPPY for 20% off.
If you're using Delete Me, use that man's code. Shout out.
Links in the description. Back to the episode.
At the end of October 2025, the Associated Press revealed from their sources that the FBI ran an elaborate rendition operation against Maduro. Rendition is another word for kidnapping, but the good kind, the kind that has lots of paperwork and is used against enemies of the state. Edwin Lopez, an agent with the U.S. Homeland Security Investigations Unit, was called.
He's saying that they tried to kidnap him? Which I'm not saying is out of question, but I don't know. I mean, why don't you just go get CAG, drop him on the building, run in there, grab him, get out, you know? And I'm sure that'd be a gunfight, but I'm just saying if you want to kidnap him.
In to look into some suspicious pilots and their jet that they seized in the Dominican Republic. These pilots were conducting some routine maintenance on their jet. It all sounds innocent enough, but they were doing it illegally because their Venezuelan aircraft was sanctioned.
So by simply servicing the private jet out of the country,
Is that Venezuelans, like, PR room? That suspiciously looks a lot like ours.
in the Dominican Republic, this was a criminal offense in and of itself to the United States. Agent Lopez used this as leverage against the pilots when interrogating them about the seized aircraft. He pressed them on who they fly around, when they do it, where they do it, what celebrities and athletes are they ferrying, and where. Lopez then asked if they'd ever flown someone by the name of Nicolas Maduro in their jet. The chief pilot, named Bittner, admitted that he did frequently fly Maduro around. According to insider reporting, the U.S. government then offered Bittner, the chief pilot, a deal. All he had to do was secretly divert their next flight with Maduro on board to a
Not a bad plan. Not a bad plan.
U.S. airbase, and America would then capture him and incarcerate him. And America would make him filthy rich, $50 million richer, which is a full bounty on Maduro's head. If that sounds crazy, remember that's pretty much the exact same plot that worked at capturing the top cartel bosses from Mexico in 2024. This move is now the FBI's go-to signature kidnapping hat trick at this point. But would that offer really be enough? No amount of money could guarantee Bittner's safety. That pilot knew he would always be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life if he took that money. He might never be able to go home. But the pilot wrote,
What do you do in that situation? You believe Uncle Sam in his protection, or I don't know. Because you can give up, give it up to authorities, but like, there goes your money. Really lucky piece of money for being paid. I don't know. Looking at rules. Hope that's sure.
back a final defiant text saying he would never betray Maduro like that, and the U.S. intelligence community was shocked at being left on red like that. In response, they fully crashed out and went hard on him. U.S. officials posted on X compromising photos of the chief pilot where he was seen talking to Venezuelan opposition leaders. No one is more catty than federal agents that have been let on. This post could have been very embarrassing for Maduro, and it could have gotten the pilot Bittner life in prison for his treasonous activities. Because the post quickly went viral, it was seen by 2.8 million people, and this forced Bittner out into the open and panicked President Maduro. From flight tracking data, it looked like his private plane took an immediate U-turn back home while it was up in the air. Maduro's government clapped back and made their own counterpost, denouncing what they called quote-unquote opposition lies and praising the pilots for their loyalty. The spot.
There you go. My man made the right choice. They didn't kill him. And, government's on his side. Hell yeah. Good for him.
IV spy shadow war here is between the CIA and Maduro's counterintelligence service that's called the General Directorate of Military Counterintelligence, or DGCIM. They're the ones who are investigating this type of covert action that's being taken by the United States and Venezuela right now. They, along with Cuban intelligence agents, work together closely to monitor every pilot and anyone that's close to Maduro in an attempt to stop this kind of operation.
I think part of what's interesting about these clandestine missions so far is the very public nature of all these announcements. It's pretty unusual to see these kind of things being spoken about openly. From both the Venezuelan and American authorities, they've been airing their dirty espionage laundry.
It's kind of hard not to now in the era of technology and stuff, right? Because everyone's going to see everything, if the news isn't going to report it, then people will send it. So I don't think that's as surprising as some people may think.
For all of us to see on X and on these public press conferences, the fact that Trump made the announcement of authorizing CIA operations in Venezuela public for all of us to know tells us something. Likely he wants Maduro to be paranoid and be seeing operatives in his Cheerios. And on the other hand, the fact that Maduro publicly claimed to have caught CIA-backed operatives is unusual, when tradecraft would usually dictate you keep that kind of information secret and close to the chest. This is part of the reason why experts are saying a lot of this conflict so far has been geopolitical theater. Countries are all theater kids and model UN kids at heart after all. But we're observing that these clandestine
Are they?
methods are reaching their limits, and the shadow war is threatening to turn into a case of full-blown war. If the first phase of this has been fought in secret chats and back channels, the next one's happening in broad daylight, and the size of the US military buildup suggests something far bigger than a counter-narcotics mission. Both the United States and Venezuela are mobilizing huge amounts of force. Since September, the United States has very publicly amassed the largest military force in the Caribbean since the 1980s. Roughly 10% of the entire U.S. Navy is deployed to the Caribbean by late October, and this is even before the USS Gerald R. Ford strike group with some 80 more combat aircraft arrived, with the largest and most
I was about to say that. Pretty sure this is the biggest aircraft carrier in the world on paper.
advanced aircraft carrier in the world. Cuban intelligence is reportedly closely monitoring this buildup and sending those details to Venezuela. Now, satellite images reveal the
Heck yeah, Cuba.
extent of this buildup. The U.S. military is doing extensive construction, with upgrading an old Cold War era base, the Roosevelt Roads Naval Base in Puerto Rico. It was long forgotten, but it will now help sustain these missions. Overhead imagery shows runways are being cleared to increase fighter jet sortie rates, the construction of new tents for more housing capacity, and construction of additional ammunition storage facilities. Defense contractor sites are lighting up with job offers like I'm working for Halliburton and it's 2003 again. At only 500 miles away from Venezuela, Puerto Rico is the perfect staging location to support sustained operations. According to the United States, it's there to crush the Cartel de los Soles that's allegedly trafficking 500 tons of cocaine into the United States and Europe each year. If you take a look here, you'll see this graphic shows the location of 10 F-35 advanced stealth fighter jets, Reaper drones, and the general spots where warships are in this region. Joining these destroyers, cruisers, and amphibious landing ships, and nuclear attack submarine from the north, over the last few months are more specialized assets that we know about now, like the AC-130 Ghost Rider and the MV Ocean Trader. The news service Online Intelligence reported that special operators from that Ocean Trader ship are now mapping out Venezuela's defensive systems in shaping operations. According to two U.S. intelligence officials, Navy SEALs are mapping out targets along the coast. There will be an estimated 15,000 to 17,000 troops dedicated to the mission. The writing is on the wall, or should I say, the writing is on the sky, because the U.S. Air Force has been regularly tracked flying supersonic B-1 and B-52 bombers from Air Force bases in Texas, North Dakota, and Louisiana. In this case, America is like the giant floating aircraft carrier. You don't even need an aircraft carrier when you're that close to home. Compared to the last few decades of war...
Dude, not only does America not want another war, America doesn't want a war with the South. South America. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I get it. We don't want the fentanyl and some other stuff in here, but we don't want to put boots on ground, that's for sure.
Air Force is barely commuting to work on this one. They barely have to leave home to fire their JASSM cruise missiles that can hit targets over 500 miles away.
Also, if you have problems on your doorstep, well, if you're starting problems down the street, you're bound to have problems on your doorstep. So if they're attacking us, who knows where you jump in? And we're right next to the border. I mean, we're launching planes from America, so what's stopping people from launching shit at America? I mean, I guess it's a bigger army coming for you, but maybe that's what they're hoping.
They lob shots with precision while staying out of any of the range of enemy air defense. The United States military has destroyed at least 18 different vessels so far that they claim are drug boats, killing 70 people now. The rules of engagement with these have been what we like to call in the military officially as loosey-goosey, or there's another one, blast 'em. These attacks have hit in the Caribbean and now the Eastern Pacific Ocean. The reason these attacks are happening at sea, I think, is because it's kind of a legally dubious region. There is less pushback to what happens here. International waters is like the purge, but 24/7. No rules, no laws. You want to gamble, go ahead. You want to marry your cousin, that's fine. You want to murk a bunch of drug runners, it's international waters, splish splash, I'm having a bath. In response to this U.S. buildup, Venezuelan leader Maduro ordered the National Bolivarian Armed Forces to full wartime readiness, mobilizing 125,000 troops and 400,000 militia fighters. Maduro then issued a stern warning that he has 5,000 of the Igla-S anti-air missile systems that he's activated to, quote, guarantee peace. However, he forgot everyone and their mom nowadays has access to information on weapon systems capabilities. The Igla-S has a short range of 10,000 feet. It's only really good for taking down helicopters in the short ceiling, not stealth fighter aircraft. He likely mentioned those Iglas because it's more for a domestic audience, but according to...
Yeah, dude, I mean, if you compare the militaries, I don't think anyone needs to be told that there's a huge gap in military equipment and strategies, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Venezuela was still in like the 60s and 70s when it comes to military capabilities.
High-ranking Venezuelan military officers who have actually defected and come to the United States, Venezuela's armed forces are short on resources, short on maintenance, and short on training. They claim the Venezuelan military is lousy with corruption and internal scheming that makes it far less powerful than its size on paper would suggest. According to a few sources, operational readiness across their armed forces is estimated between 25 to 40%. T-72 tanks and BTR-80 armored vehicles suffer from frequent mechanical failures, with spare parts in very short supply. Only 3 of their ocean patrol ships remain operational, and 6 of their missile frigates were sold for scrap. Their last remaining submarine is broken down. I like a surface level analysis as much as the next military YouTuber. It's true the Venezuelan military has 22 Soviet-era Su-30 fighter jets, but according to deeper open and source intelligence from insiders, only 4 are fully operational of those fighters. Other sources like Latin America Military Aviation places it slightly higher at 13 being operational. This is not to say, though, that there are no threats. Venezuela's Air Force has the KH-31 anti-ship missile with a possible range of 70 miles. Launched from a Su-30, that range even increases. It has the potential to speed through a warship's point defenses with that 200-pound warhead, and that's no fun for nobody. It's perhaps the most capable weapon in their Air Force and arsenal. Another 4 1980s-era US-made F-16s are able to fly out of their inventory of 24. But according to these reports, they don't have any working missile systems for those F-16s. If I'm being fair, that's still 4 more fighter jets than I have, though. But it never pays to underestimate your adversary, and the equation could change. And this is why, in the face of these challenges, President Maduro has requested his allies' help in sending him weaponry. However, is the Russian Federation able and willing to provide more effective weapons? Recent reports show evidence of a Russian IL-76 heavy cargo plane arriving in the capital of Venezuela. Its registration number is linked to none other than the mercenary Wagner force that you might be familiar with. It took a circular route. If you follow its tracking, it went all over the world to avoid unfriendly airspace and to ensure that its mystery cargo was free of any risk of being interdicted or inspected. But we know it's the type of aircraft that frequently delivers rockets, missile systems, small arms. Everyone's favorite game of climbing the escalation ladder continued on Friday, November 7th, when Russian Foreign Ministry and several other high-ranking Russian officials claimed that they were ready to support Maduro and potentially even send new types of long-range missiles, trying to kind of stick it to the United States, whether they will...
Yeah, this would be a good way to stick it to the United States. Well, in their, in a very passive-aggressive way, because it's kind of getting back at America for giving Ukraine a bunch of weapons, Talk about some serious war games.
actually have the hardware and resources necessary to send that weaponry, though, is something that we're going to see over the next few weeks. And what does that leave Maduro with until then? It's also true the Venezuelan military has 2 of the Russian-provided S-300VM Antony 2,500 surface-to-air missile systems, but they've gone over a decade without maintenance. The core of the air defense is also built around 12 of the air defense that has a max range of 250,000 feet. There are also Tor-M and Pechora 2M systems, which are reinforced with the old Zu-20.
Yo, if all this intel is real, man, these guys are lucky that they haven't gotten rolled over on yet. I'm gonna tell you right now, mission readiness in the U.S. military is like stuffed down your throat.
3 cannons. They're all tied together with the JYL-27A Chinese and Russian Nebo SVU radars. And what all of that means is a report by the Miami Strategic Intelligence Institute, based on intercepted communications of their active duty forces, found that 60% of the country's surveillance and detection capabilities are totally out of service and without spare parts. It's a patchwork of systems that's vulnerable to American electronic warfare, jamming by U.S. fighter aircraft. These are mainly placed around the Bolivarian Republic's headquarters, though, and it's mainly strategic.
It wouldn't surprise me if they sent a bunch of drones off of aircraft carriers to Venezuela as a testing thing. That'd be crazy.
Placed around their bases. We know that even on paper, this air defense network is less sophisticated and less capable compared to Iran's, and that network was totally incapable of engaging American stealth fighters and their escorts and bombers on their strike against their nuclear facilities. This information is corroborated from a number of different open sources, not just former defective soldiers. As always, all intelligence reports should be weighted and taken together, though the full assessment is backed up further by widely reported dire economic situation that the country has faced for years, where Maduro's having challenging time feeding the population, which can make financing a military even more difficult. The United States warns that strikes against land targets within Venezuela's borders are next. They've lined up crosshairs on a secret list of targets that includes both military and alleged drug trafficking infrastructure. Gets blurry though when sometimes those are dual use. However, all indicators currently point to no plans for any kind of actual ground invasion, and if regime change is the goal, it can be difficult to depose someone without boots on the ground ultimately. So how do you take someone out of power without getting bogged down in a costly possible insurgency? The current option on the table is Tomahawk cruise missiles from the surface warships and precision
Yeah, that's how they popped off Iraq. Tomahawks.
munitions delivered by Reaper drones, combined with electronic warfare. The goal would be to encourage local police to capture high-ranking members of Maduro's inner circle for the reward money. Even if regime change isn't the overall objective of the United States Caribbean strategy, just the threat of America's capabilities might be enough to persuade President Maduro to comply with America's demands. However, complying might not be enough, and part of the war happening behind the scenes, part of this shadow...
Yeah, I think they just want this guy gone, period. Yeah, I don't think he doesn't play ball, and I mean he kind of like I guess allies with the other side, but they just don't want this guy, period.
War is the battle of the wills, the diplomatic exchange of fire, so to speak. In fact, President Maduro may have already offered to simply comply with the United States demands in early October. In an attempt to keep power and avoid a fight with the American military, President Maduro is said to have offered to share Venezuela's immense oil and mineral wealth by promising a majority stake in all resource extraction to U.S. companies. This is according to multiple people close to the talks and negotiations that have been widely reported in the media. Maduro's negotiating team also allegedly offered to cut ties with American adversaries and stop exporting oil to Russia and China, essentially offering to do whatever was necessary, and the US government confirmed that this happened. And to sweeten the pot, Venezuela's diplomats also allegedly promised a phased transfer of power that would ultimately lead to Maduro stepping down and there being new elections. But the U.S. diplomats, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, said no deal. Either President Maduro stepped down now and immediately stopped all support for narco-terrorist groups, or there was nothing else to negotiate. What we do know for sure is that the rejection of these talks in mid-October basically ended all diplomatic talks, and instead the threat of military force has been the one and only message since then. It's possible the show of force in the Caribbean is about more than compliance, and it's a message aimed at other non-compliant nations like Nicaragua, Cuba, and most importantly China, who's recently been investing billions of dollars in Latin America over the past.
I mean, the drug problem is real. But what's the people of Venezuela want to do? That'd be my first question. What's the people of Venezuela want to do?
Decade. Important signs to look for, I think, of any unilateral military action coming up from what we're observing is a clampdown on the information space. So in late October, Reuters reported that troops deployed to the Caribbean were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements as part of their assignment. Officers and Pentagon staff asked to take polygraph tests to prevent leaks. On October 16th, Admiral Avin Holsey, the commander of Southcom that oversees the Caribbean, announced his resignation that was 2 years earlier than expected from his command position after only a few months at the position. And we talked about this earlier. Regular viewers of the channel will remember one of the things that we stated that you should look for if there was going to be unilateral military action is someone like Holsey stepping down, who is all about the by, with, and through method. Now it's the through method. On October 30th, Lieutenant General Joseph McGee, a senior officer within the Joint Chiefs of Staff, announced his early retirement. These are the most high-profile turnovers in leadership, but there's also dozens of lower-ranking officers as well. And all of that means, though, is that this suggests there might be a major new direction being taken. That approach of by, with, and through is becoming less and less influential. This suggests to us that new leadership is going to fill those positions who are more on board with the current direction of use of force in the region. Taken together, this shadow war shows that the United States is crossing from a pressure campaign to an active destabilization effort, from clandestine efforts to overt American armadas waiting offshore. This is what's happening. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. If you like this episode, I think you'll like these ones about Latin America that you'll find very interesting about how Delta Force is already operating in Mexico. So, ending transmission time now. But I love you.
Town district of El Valle. He didn't graduate high school and became a bus.
Today I'm going to show you how the shadow...
guy like Cappy Army. Get that video like... What do you guys think about that? What's going on? What's the objective? What's the move? Comment below if you want. I think they want a regime change for sure. I think they're flexing pretty hard, but I don't think there's going to be a good turnaround. No one could back that. I mean, you got to have way more. Well, I don't know. Trump's got more evidence than Bush did to go in Iraq.